I just want to get our show started off for this evening here. Again, like I said, happy Halloween. And we here at The Queer Life are in the festive spirit for Halloween. And I've got my Harley Quinn costume on with the Joker makeup, which I am very, very pleased about. If you want to check that out, we actually have a live video feed. Yes, I said live video feed of the Queer Life radio show on thequeerlife.org. Yes, I know it's shameless promotion. You can go to facebook.com/thequeerlife. You can tweet us at any point during the show at The Queer Life. You can also go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to us. youtube.com/ you guessed it, The Queer Life. My name is Kaiya Krammer. I am your host for The Queer Life radio show. This is now our, what is it? I think it's our 13th episode. That's 14th. I don't even know this. Well, you know what? I should probably just begin and just get the interview started and just talk to you about my guest. My guest this evening is Rachael Rose Luckey, transgender female living in Hollywood, California, founder of TransGen Studios, trans-owned and run film studio. She's a trans activist, the president of the Los Angeles Trans Coalition, and a campaign manager for trans ambassadors. Not to mention, she just started a trans publication called the TransGen Times. Rachael, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Kaiya. You're looking very scary today.
Oh, thank you. Normally, I would be offended by such a thing.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
And
all you people in YouTube land.
Yes. Wave to the camera. And I know this sounds weird for a lot of you out there who are listening to the radio, but we are doing multiple things right now. So, Rachael, you're all the way up here from LA.
Yes, it was quite a ride.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you could stop at our humble studio and be on our show.
Well, I was up here to attend the Transgender Face Summit in Berkeley, and you had given me this nice invite to come and talk on your show.
My first question is for you. Do you identify as how do you identify in terms of gender identification?
Well, before started my transition, I identified as a bisexual male. And then I came to realize that I did have this girl living inside of me. And so now I self-identify as a transgender female, and I'm very proud of the transgender part. I know a lot of people go stealth and things like that and want to kind of leave their transness behind. But I'm very much a proud transgender female. And at this point, I'm pretty much straight.
All right. So could you define what you mean by straight?
I'm like I said before, I was bisexual, but as soon as I kind of went on hormones, I'm pretty much all attracted to guys at this point, and cis men in general.
Cis men. Okay. Yes. And could you define for our audience what cis means?
Cis is basically everybody that's not transgender. It's really that simple.
Everybody who's not transgender.
Right.
All right. So nobody in this room.
There's nobody in this current room currently. No. We are not cis.
But a lot of people would ask, is like, oh, so just normal, right? Why don't we just say normal?
Because would actually be derogatory towards transgender people, that we're not normal. And, except for the fact that we are transgender, we're just like everybody else in the population.
Absolutely. And the reason I'm asking these questions is not because I don't know the answers to them, but I'm asking them for the audience here, just so that we can kind of get more of an under a level playing field. We've defined terms a lot during the show. If you actually watch the first episode of The Queer Life on thequeerlife.org, we have all the episodes, the videos up there of the episodes, and we actually go through the entire LGBTQIA acronym and try to loosely define everybody.
XYZ PDQ.
Yeah. Barbecue, WTF. But as you know, we've spoken to more and more people. Language changes, definitions change, and so I constantly like to check in to see, you know, where others are thinking, because I don't have a monopoly on the definitions, and what I say, you know, in the first episode may have been changed by even this episode, our 14th episode.
Yes, things are continually evolving, absolutely. And I think one of the great things about the transgender experience is that we are all inclusive. We have people in our community from all walks of life, all ethnicities, all social and economic walks of life. So, and I think that is a wonderful thing. It's kind of a melting pot. And, you know, we can kind of use that going forward.
You know, the term melting pot always makes me hungry a little bit.
Especially for Halloween, you know.
Yeah.
Get the witch's cauldron going.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start getting personal a little bit here. Do you mind if we get personal?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so you're a trans identified woman.
Yes.
Okay, and you identify yourself as straight.
Yes, I would say 90% men, 10% women.
Okay.
I still look at girls and go,
Okay. A lot of people would be confused. Well, so you're transsexual. You're a transsexual woman, but you're attracted to men. How does that make you straight?
Well, if you can wrap your brain around the fact that I am a woman, like any other woman, except that I was born in a male body. If you can accept the fact that I am a woman on the inside, then my being attracted to men would make me straight.
So just along a gender binary point of view then?
Right, yes. And as we know, things are a lot more fluid than just the gender binary, but that's how I self-identify.
All right. Well, there you go. For our listeners out there, me, your host, Kaiya, I have not identified whether I am straight, gay, bisexual, pansexual.
We just know you're not asexual.
Asexual. I try not to talk about myself on this show a little bit, but if you do want to find out, you can give us a call and donate $1,000 to KBBF, or make a donation to kbbf-fm.org. This radio station is a progressive, independent radio station and could use your support.
Yes.
Did you grow up in Hollywood? You came up here from Hollywood. No, so what's the sitch?
I'm originally from Washington, D.C.
Oh,
and,
okay.
I was an architect for almost 20 years before I moved to Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And basically I did that because I wanted to get into film.
An architect?
Yeah.
Film. I'm not seeing the connection.
I actually moved to Hollywood to build movie sets.
Oh, okay.
And hence became a production designer. And then after seeing how productions were run, I decided that I could actually produce, because there was a lot of similarities between construction management, which was something I had done in the past, and putting together a film project. So that's what kind of led me into producing, and then my long trek to founding a studio, which I'm still working on getting on its legs.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here. So you're from Washington, D.C. You came to Hollywood to build film sets. Is that when you got into filmmaking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
What was your inspiration for getting into filmmaking?
I've always had a passion. I'd always been in drama back in school and chorus, and I'd always been involved in the theatrical arts. So when I got to Hollywood, the bug bit me.
So So did you move to? So you moved to Hollywood to get into film,
Yes.
or okay, wow,
Yeah.
okay, that seems like sort of like the the California dream,
Yeah, it
make it,
was. It was totally the California dream. I quit my job. I gave away 90% of my stuff. Loaded up my
Hey, where was I at
minivan.
that time?
That was in 2001. I loaded up the minivan and and did kind of the clamp it thing in reverse.
Yeah, there you go.
Me and my puppy dog.
Oh, very nice. What kind of dog do you have?
Actually, I had to put him down, but he was German Shepherd, Collie, and Terrier mix, and he was the best puppy dog in the world.
Oh,
I really miss him.
absolutely. So I read on your resume. I don't usually demand that my interviewees give me their resume, but it helps me in doing a little background research on them. It mentioned that you did some independent films. What sort of independent films have you created?
Well, I was the production designer on H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, not the one with Tom Cruise in it, but the one with C. Thomas Howell, which you can actually see on Hulu and it's probably on Netflix and whatnot. But
awesome.
that was probably one of the bigger movies I've been on. As I was telling you earlier in the parking lot when we were having our pre-interview, if you wanted to call it that. I'm kind of I'm a little bit of a small fish in a big pond, and I'm working my way up. So and I think that the whole transgender changing the narrative in the media is a great catalyst for my goals and dreams.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, you're definitely coming at that from a lot of friends here, which we will be getting to in this interview. Can you tell me a little bit about TransGen Studios?
TransGen Studios is my brainchild. And, in thinking about what needs to happen in the transgender movement, some of the people that I've talked to say that the narrative in the media needs to change. There needs to be more trans inclusivity, which we're seeing with Transparent and some other shows. So that's a step in the right direction. But my thought was to have a transgender owned and run studio so that we could change the narrative directly without having to go through the studios and the networks and all of these things. And then, my other thing is that the transgender population, the unemployment rate is twice the national average. And for women, transgender women of color, it's 3 times the national average. And one of the things I'm wanting the studio to be is actually a work program, so that we can, elevate the people in the transgender community by giving them, when you have a job, you have self-worth, and I think that a lot of transgender people suffer from that because they are so discriminated in the workplace currently.
Yeah, you mentioned transgender women of color. What does that is a title mean?
It means basically transgender women who are not white. It could be Mexican, African American, Asian. Their statistics are a lot worse than the white population.
Okay, so me as an Asian trans woman, so would I be considered a trans woman of color?
Yes, I would say.
Okay, all right. Well, there we go. It's a nice option to keep in the back pocket.
Just one more card to lay on the table.
Yeah. And all right. Well, there we go. So you're creating this TransGen Studios. It's got you want to be very inclusive of trans people, or rather exclusive, or not only, but
not only. People think that when they hear TransGen Studios that all I want to do is put out transgender movies and topics and, actors and things like that. And, that's part of it. But also part of it is to put out mainstream movies that maybe don't have anything to do with transgenderism or transgender actors or anything, or even stories, so that, when mainstream goes to look at the movie, they're going to know that, this is a great movie and it was produced by a transgender studio.
Transgender studio. I'm not even really sure what that means. It's just
well, owned and operated, first of all, by transgender people.
Yeah.
And then, as a work program, I intend to hire as many transgender people in the media and film business, as well as other arenas, business areas, because, a studio relies on more than just crew and actors and things like that. So I think there's, we all know the kinds of money that gets spent on production, on, like the big budget movies and things like that. And that's kind of where I want to go.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I mean,
and then, the other side of that coin is that, if my films and my content is successful, we also all know the kinds of money that can be generated in profits. And I want to funnel that back into, transgender movement and causes and things like that. And, just make sure that, transgender people have work and a place to live and can live their lives.
Wow, what a concept, transgender people. So you're finding work for trans people is difficult, and you're also mentioning finding a place to live.
Oh yes, absolutely. According to Claire, who runs the transgender, I guess you call it the department or something, I don't know, at the LGBT Center in San Francisco here, when I was up here for Trans Pride last summer, she mentioned that, in addition to the work problem, we have a big discrimination problem in trying to find housing.
Trying to find housing, like,
yes.
So a trans person tries to get home, they're like,
well, they put in their application, they go to look at a place, and it's all of a sudden, sorry, and you could have the best credit in the world and have $1 million in your pocket.
Oh my gosh, this seems like kind of a problem. Everybody needs a place to live.
It's kind of a problem, all right? I was putting it lightly.
Okay, well, wow.
And I'm fortunate enough to live in Los Angeles. You're fortunate enough to live in the San Francisco area, where people are very tolerant. In Los Angeles, people don't look at me twice. I'm in Hollywood. There's plenty of freaky people walking around, so I'm not the freakiest of them all. So
oh no, don't say that. I'm not freaky. I'm a little freakier right now.
Well, you are definitely freaky right now. And we all love to get our freak on. So yeah, it's we're fortunate to live in these kinds of locales, but there are so many people, and I chat with people on Facebook from Vermont and Iowa and some of these rural areas, and they're just afraid to even go out of the house as who they are.
Oh my gosh.
And it's horrible, and that's why we need to make it a clear message, of who we are and what we where we're coming from.
All right, so we just had a caller there, and our caller actually is a caller from the Los Angeles area as well. So we are having a little bit of reach, which is really awesome. So thank you so much, caller, for your question. The caller asked, and the question is for our guest this evening. It's there's there seems to be a lot of how do we bridge together the different factions of the trans community? It's kind of that's kind of a big question there to ask.
Very large question. And it's one of the things that the Los Angeles Transgender Coalition is looking at. One of the biggest comments from LGBT organizations is that the transgender community is fractured, not unified, and has not basically shown up to, you know, the meetings, the, you know, all of the things that our LGBT brothers and sisters have been doing to you know, get their rights and things protected. So how we bridge that, that is a really good question. And here's what I have to say. It's a real short message. The infighting and the backbiting is all fine and dandy, and you know, you don't have to like your trans brother or sister, because not everybody likes everybody else. But when it comes time to stand up and be counted as part of the trans community, you have to put that stuff behind you, or put it aside, or put it in your purse or your pocket or wherever you need to put it. But it has to get off the table, because, you know, if we do not come at this as a united front, we are not going to change things. And if it wasn't for the Stonewall Democratic Club with ENDA going to the LGBT organizations and saying, look, you can't drop the T out of this piece of legislation, things wouldn't be progressing the way they have been. So, you know, I applaud the Stonewall Democratic Club for that. But, you know, we have to show up. We have to be counted.
This raises another question too. The caller asked about the different factions of the trans community. A lot of people out there are like, "Ooh, you know, let's put on the brakes for a second." There are different kinds of trans people.
Oh yes, absolutely. The transgender umbrella kind of encompasses everything from RuPaul, who is a drag queen, to
wait, RuPaul from like RuPaul's Drag Race.
Drag Race,
oh,
right.
okay.
Yeah, which you know, is basically you know, somebody who's, you know, comfortable in their bodies but still gender bend, as it were. And then, you know, then progressing across the spectrum is cross-dressers and transvestites who, you know, either cross-dress for comfort, or transvestism is more about fetish and things like that. So, you know, get into the erotic thing.
Wait, what's the difference?
Between what, cross-dressers and transvestites?
Yeah.
Cross-dressers, they're not necessarily doing it for a sexual thing, but they aren't really feeling like they want to transition to become that opposite sex physically.
Mm-hmm.
And then transvestites are doing it more as a fetish, as an erotic activity.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard of Eddie Izzard, right?
Yes,
he's
very
TV.
funny.
TV.
Yeah, he is TV. He's hilarious, though.
Yeah, he is.
But notice, I mean, you know, here's somebody who is a transvestite, and we are pronouncing him as him, and I think he's okay with that.
RuPaul?
No,
who?
Eddie.
Oh, Eddie Izzard. Oh, okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
And so, you know, this is not somebody that wants to be identified as she per se. He just at certain times, as part of his performance or as part of his, you know, eroticness, you know, this is how he likes to express himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then going across the spectrum even further, we have questioning people and transgender fluid people who, you know, transgender fluid people, maybe one day, you know, they wake up and they're feeling manly, and the next day they feel more femme, you know, and you know, and they don't necessarily want to fit in that gender binary of male or female, black and white.
Real quick, could you reiterate what gender binary means?
Gender binary is the best way I can describe it is the black and white of gender, male or female. And for so long, it's been assumed that that's all there was. You were either male or you were female. That's it. But what we're finding is that there's actually a lot more people than we think who are gender fluid and who do not fit in that binary. They are the gray of the black and white.
Okay, not so much like 50 Shades of Grey, though.
No,
Right?
not that kind of. Which I haven't read that yet, so I gotta get up on that, I guess.
Absolutely. Okay, so there's a question that I've heard is there's also since there's so many different factions within the queer community, either the whole Calpurnia Adams situation and the response to the Dallas Buyers Club, and there's sort of this the old guard and the new guard. The new guard being the younger, newer trans generation, younger in terms of transition, not necessarily number of revolutions around the sun. Oh my gosh, the phone is blowing up. All right, hello everybody. Our phones are blowing up this evening, and I have another caller calling in from LA. You're attracting a lot of callers.
Yeah.
From a hometown region here.
I guess the webcam is working for us.
Yes. The webcam. Yes. Okay, so let's take this call here real quick. So caller, Rachel, you're gonna probably want to put some headphones on to hear.
I'll just stick it up to my ear.
All right, caller, you are now on the air.
Okay. My name is Veronica from Los Angeles, and I was wondering for Rachel, what can we do, or what can we say to people that don't live in as accepting communities across America? The rural areas of Wisconsin and whatnot, where they're generally unaccepted and they encounter a good deal of hatred on a day-to-day basis. What can we say to them to inspire them to just love themselves more and become more in tune with the trans community?
Well, that's a great question, Veronica, and there's not an easy answer to that. Most of the times I tell folks to make a plan, save some money, and try to move to a more tolerant area, because a lot of these folks, you are not going to change their minds, and it really comes down to a question of safety. And I've chatted with a lot of girls and trans men as well, who they're afraid to go out of the house, and for good reason. So the other thing that they can do is try to get involved in their local political systems as well as their social systems, and seek out those who are like-minded and possibly more tolerant, and maybe religious leaders and things like that. I know like the Pope just came out and said we really do need.
Wait, the Pope just came out?
No. I mean, he does wear a dress and everything, but he just came out and said, I guess I got to be quicker with my words.
Sorry, I think I just lost like 1,000 listeners.
But he just said that, as far as the Christian community is concerned, they really need to be more tolerant and inclusive. And to be honest, the Southern Baptists and people like that, I believe, are some of our biggest opponents right now, and the ones that are spreading the worst of the hate speech. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. And just to comment on, I do have a friend that recently moved from the Bible Belt that's living in San Francisco, and she's actually homeless. She had an apartment out there, and she came to San Francisco just for acceptance, and living on the streets now because it was so intolerant where she lived.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, like Rachel said, sometimes you have to find a place that's going to be a little accepting, but as you know, no place is perfect. It's you have to surround yourself with people who are going to be supportive. Build an extended family.
That's also why I say, before you pick up and move out of your town, stay in the closet if you have to, make a plan, put the money together, make sure that you have a job and a place to live before you move out of where you're at, because living off the streets is not the best situation either. So no matter where you are, so that's why I say make a plan and then execute it.
All right, thank you so much, caller, for your question.
Thank you very much.
All right. Wow.
So we were talking about the transgender range, and I don't think we got to finish that. Then we have gender fluid people, and then we have people such as myself who have decided to transition, and where we're trying to make our outsides fit our insides, match our insides. And we call these people transsexuals. And I believe that would be on the other end of the spectrum.
When we were in previous episodes, defining transsexual, we define the terms quite a bit in this show here, just to keep everybody abreast of what is going on. So that's probably not the best word to use. Yes, I know, everybody, there's a lot of silliness in this show because everything is sometimes a little too serious in this world. So let's, we try to have a little bit of fun. If you want a little bit more serious, more sober, go listen to NPR. Actually, no, please don't. I'm not advertising. That's being sarcastic. Please keep listening to KBBF. You're listening to The Queer Life. LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussion, interviews. I'm your host, Kaiya Krammer. I'm with my guest this evening, Rachael Luckey, founder of TransGen Studios, president of the Los Angeles Trans Coalition, campaign manager for Trans Ambassadors, and founder of the TransGen Times. We have been talking about her experience moving to Hollywood, working in the film industry, trying to change the media in terms of trans representation, and we spent a little bit of time here defining a little bit of termiage. I'm not even sure if that's a wordage. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm a huge dork. And also, happy Halloween, everybody! Yes. Happy Halloween!
And happy Samhain for all you pagans out there.
Indubitably. That's the word for it. I was like trying to figure it out. I'm like, there's another word for it. Mm-hmm. If you're in World of Warcraft right now, it's Happy Hallows End. Anyhow, here, if you want to check out the show, we are streaming live on the interwebs, www.thequeerlife.org. If you can't find that link, you can check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/thequeerlife. You can tweet us at The Queer Life. You can also check us out on YouTube. We have our own channel. Yes, our own Queer Life channel. YouTube.com/user/The Queer Life. And if you watch the episode, you actually see my crazy Harley Quinn meets the Joker crazy costume. So
pretty scary.
Pretty rad. But anyway, I'm going to turn the camera back to my guest here, and we are going to continue. Or wave to the camera.
Yes. Hi, Mom.
Chatting about our guest Rachael Luckey here. So Rachael,
what else do you want to know?
Let's talk here for a second. There was a thought, right before the little musical break that I was diving into. Then I realized that we needed to have a word from our sponsors.
Okay.
Because without our sponsors or listeners like you,
then we don't get to sit here.
We don't get to sit here. So please, if you have a heart, or at least an extra buck, go to kbbf-fm.org. And you know, like seriously, this is the radio station you listen to. It's like it's all volunteer run. You know, we need help. Please give us help me
help me,
help me. Anyway,
help me help you to help me to help you.
Yes. So go to kpbf-fm.org. There's a PayPal link at the bottom. If you even have $1, you know. Yeah. Go on there. Give us $1. You know, mention that you listen to the Queer Life, because then they'll give me props. No, I'm just kidding. I don't do it. I don't even get paid for this. You know, I'm not. You know, I'm not some fat cat sitting in my studio. You know, but anyhow, I was just talking about so you know, we were talking about factions in the queer community.
Yes.
And there's this idea from the old guard, you know, Calpurnia Adams, and kind of the, you know, those that have, you know, sort of, you know, paved the way for the new transitioning people to come out. But you know, there's you know, for a while there was one of RuPaul's episodes, there was was it female or she-male
right.
was the name of the game.
Yes.
She-male is actually
derogatory.
Yeah, considered politically incorrect, derogatory towards trans-identified people. I'm only saying that on the air right now just to identify it. It will soon. It should end up on the list of words you're not allowed to say on the radio, but
right.
but for now it isn't. But so we're using it for educational purposes. And the challenge in the RuPaul episode was you know, to basically clock the person as
right.
being trans or not. Clock meaning to identify somebody as being trans. Trans is short for transgender. Or whether they're, you know, trans or, you know, cis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, cis as in layman's terms, biological female, which is
right.
not completely accurate, but you know, that's we're trying to make everybody understand here. I know there's a lot of words. I know there's a lot of definitions. I know there's a lot of keywords. You know, you will be tested. Anyhow, though.
But it's those words, and it's that dialogue that makes it so difficult for the cis community, you know, to understand. And it's one of the roadblocks for, you know, having people understand our movement and what we're trying to accomplish. And you know, sometimes it's very difficult for them to wrap their head around all that terminology, and it's like, oh, it's just too much for me, and you know, just kind of blow it off and continue to think the way that they think, you know, without changing.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that we're starting this dialogue here, and it's funny that you say the cis community.
Yeah.
Don't you mean everybody else?
No, I don't. No, because the only one that's not a community is humans.
Wait,
everybody
what?
else is you know, I hate to use labels, and you know, there's some people out there that are like, oh, you're using labels, I hate labels, this, that, and the other thing. But you know, I
am no sissy.
But you know, we have to have terminology and verbiage that, you know, so that we can discuss things openly and rationally. Because if you don't have this terminology, then having a discussion with somebody and trying to get your point across is, you know, just goes back to the whole, you know, where do words come from and why do we use them, you know? And
right.
It's kind of basic. It's very basic.
Well, you know, Calpurnia Adams recent, or, you know, as of, you know, within the last 6 months came under fire for saying, you know, that trans people are being too sensitive, and this is actually something that a lot of cis people have actually said about the progressive, some would say radical trans movements. Mm-hmm. That, you know, the words like tranny, she-male, which you know, which are now being considered derogatory. She's
Yes.
saying that the trans people have been called these terms for a long time, and that the new generation is just being too sensitive. What do you think about that?
Well, the thing about that is that those are the words that trans people hear just before they're beaten, just before they're stabbed to death. So, those kinds of words and that kind of language leads to, like this is called the queer life, but 20 years ago, calling somebody queer was actually like hate speech. And it was something that gay and lesbian people heard just before they got their butts kicked.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point that you bring up. I was
So,
about to ask you
so
about
my
that. Yeah.
my point in all of this is that that until we have gained the same protections and have changed enough minds to get the same tolerance as the gay and lesbian movement has been able to achieve, until that time, yes, we need to be hypersensitive, and we cannot let anything slide, because if we do, then we're sliding backwards. We're going backwards instead of forwards, and we have to be watchdogs.
All right. Well, there you have it. There. And that's another good point. And a point that we've addressed in previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
The Queer Life radio show. The word queer, it was considered pejorative.
Yes.
For a long time, and it's amazing that we are at a point in time where the majority of the LGBTQIA community will band under the term queer. We try to unite ourselves under the term queer, although there's disagreements and on many levels, as
there always will be.
There always will be. Yep. But we try to be all inclusive. Again, this show is perspectives, and as I'm your host, Kaiya Krammer, I'm a trans woman, so my perspective is going to come from the perspective of a trans woman. But so keep and the media and culture right now is somewhat focusing on the trans experience. What with Orange is the New Black,
Transparent,
yes. Dallas Buyers Club. Right. There's and a lot of stuff in the news right now. Transgender law centers sweeping trans rights across the nation. This is the time for the trans movement, so to speak.
And the good thing now is that for the trans movement is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel as far as this is concerned, as far as activism is concerned, because our LGBT brothers and sisters have gone before us, and the women's rights movement before that. And so I would say that's the hopeful part of what we're doing, is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel on that.
Absolutely. And just shout out there to all those listening. If you have any questions for us, you can give us a call into the studio, 707-545-0318, and we'd be so glad to answer your call. And if you have any questions about the trans community, about the queer community, and make a shout out, or just say hey to us. We always appreciate your the word I was going to use was patronage, because I'm thinking a little bit of Yukon Trail right now. But
there's still that donate button.
Yes, there's the donate button. You can support the show by going to kbbf-fm.org and just hit the PayPal link, donate $1.
Or if you got a cool meal sitting around, that's cool too.
Yeah. So Rachel.
Yes.
My next question for you is about. I want to get into your activist work a little bit here. Trans activism, or
yes.
Activism as a trans person.
Yes.
What are you doing to infuse trans representation into mainstream events?
Well, I'm a little bit of a newbie at this, going into this. So, but. We've formed a group in Los Angeles called the Los Angeles Transgender Coalition. And from the question earlier of how we bring the factions together, that's what the coalition is looking into. And so my hope there is that if, because Los Angeles is, kind of a microcosm of the nation, because we have so many, different types of people and whatnot, different walks of life, that if we can come up with a solution in Los Angeles, then that should be scalable to California, and then potentially nationally, and then maybe globally. Who knows? Excuse me.
Yeah, I was reading, that you had a hand in was it the net neutrality?
Yeah. Excuse me again. Here's one of the other things that occurred to me is that, if we're to gain tolerance within the mainstream cis population, one of the things that we need to do as trans people is get involved in things that are not trans. And that was the one of the reasons I showed up to that.
Whoa. So trans people not just only caring about ourselves.
Well, like I said before, the only difference between us and the rest of the people is one thing: we're trans. Yeah. Otherwise, we're just like everybody else.
Yeah.
So, that's why, I had some vested interest in the net neutrality thing. Nobody wants, the internet to be, controlled by the big corporations. So, for me, it was an issue, but it also occurred to me that as a trans person that, I need to go down and, represent the trans community within that particular activist, in that particular action. And so, I went down and everybody was accepting. Everybody, welcomed me. I stood there with everybody else and yelled and, protested, and, a good time was had by all. So, but I'm really trying to get people to realize is that they need to get out there. They, not necessarily be visible per se, but be involved.
Well, that's incredible. I that's so getting people outside from within the queer community, from within the trans community,
yes,
and working towards other stuff. It brings to mind a recent film that I just saw at the Summerfield Theater here in Santa Rosa, Pride. Did you see that film?
No,
it was lesbians and gays support the minors in Britain.
Oh wow.
And it's just that idea. It's
yes.
And this was actually a true story, and we discussed this a bit on the Broken Record radio show, which is every Monday night at 9 a.m.
or shameless
9
plug.
p.m. Excuse me. No shameless plug there either. Great show. There's other great shows. There are great shows on this radio station. I'm not saying my show is great. If you're listening to it right now, that's great.
Her show's great. You wouldn't be listening otherwise.
And
but no, that's exactly right. And that also goes hand in hand with us being involved in politics as transgender people. We can't leave it up to the LGBT community to fight for our rights. They have helped out, but one of the biggest complaints I get from them, or comments that I get from them, is that the transgender community doesn't show up when they do stuff. Whether it's for transgen rights or not, we need the transgender community to show up, period. And that's one of the reasons why I joined the Stonewall Democratic Club. And since then, in the space of like a month, I was appointed the chairperson for a committee on transgender issues. And I'm still formulating exactly what that means to me, and where I want to take this committee. But what I've basically been handed is a platform within the political system, within the process, to to address our issues and to, have them heard by people that can actually do something about it, instead of me just sitting on my couch with my remote control, whining and complaining, oh, why is life not good? And that's one of my other messages. If you want things to change, you're gonna have to get up off the couch, put the remote down, and get out the door.
Well, in this case, a lot of people tend to be on YouTube or Facebook.
Well, still got to get out the.
Yes, absolutely.
Get involved, please. Get involved.
So you're involved with Stonewall Democratic Club.
Yes.
You're involved with the Los Angeles Transgender Coalition.
Yes.
Wait, what exactly is that? So it's like
which one?
The Transgender Coalition.
Well, the Los Angeles Transgender Coalition was originally set up to look at the fracturing, within the transgender community, and see how we can bring everybody together as a unified voice, so that we can affect change, the changes that we need to have happen. The other thing is that organization is also the organization behind a brand new transgender convention in Los Angeles, November 2015. Please save the date.
Wait, say that again.
The Los Angeles Transgender Coalition is the organization behind a transgender convention, November 2015 in Los Angeles. Right now we have Southern Comfort, we have First Event, in Boston, Southern Comfort in Atlanta, we have, there's Chicago, there's all. Where we don't have a national yearly convention is Southern California. And I am the project manager of making that happen.
Wow. Shoot, you certainly have your hands full.
I certainly do. If anybody wants to help me, let me know.
Oh my gosh.
You can find me on Facebook, transgentime.org.
Transgen Times. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what is Transgen Times? I feel like this is a good transition.
Okay. No, it's a good transition. Speaking of transitions, the TransGen Times is a Huffington Post style newspaper online where I am bringing together news and related current events and stories, things like that, into one spot on the internet, so that transgender people can go and see the news about themselves. And most of the content right now, just how Huffington Post got started, is basically a graphic and a title linked to somebody else's story, which is all perfectly legal. But what I'm also looking for is contributors as well. So if anybody is wanting to, make their voice heard, the other part of what the TransGen Times is I've created that platform to make your voice heard.
Absolutely. All right. So you're creating a media resource. You're involved with all these different committees and organizations. Mm-hmm. You're doing stuff within the with film production and trans identified people, although not exclusively.
Not exclusively, no.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, where does the work end and free relax time begin?
There is no free relax time, but because I am so passionate about this, and because this is my wheelhouse and this is where I want to live, I don't feel like it's work. It's
Absolutely.
I've basically made my hobby into it's not work, it's more, well, it's not a hobby, but
it's a passion and a well-needed one too. So when exactly did you start TransGen Times? You've launched it just recently, right?
Yeah, in the last 10 days, 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, that is.
Please go to the TransGen Times Facebook page and please hit the like button.
Since this is public radio, we can't make calls to action here.
Oh, sorry.
So there's a Facebook page for the TransGen Times. It was a facebook.com/the TransGen Times.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that is there.
Okay, that is there. If you want to go take a look at it.
Yes. All right, so we've talked a bit about your work. We've defined a number of terms, and for anybody out there who is just tuning in right now, you are listening to The Queer Life on KBBF 89.1 Calistoga. Even though I say Calistoga, we're actually in Santa Rosa.
Yes.
We just have to say Calistoga because that's where KBBF is originally founded, with all that good old Kennedy money, and. This is LGBT News, Modern Perspectives, Roundtable Discussions, and Interviews. I'm your host, Kaiya Krammer. My guest this evening is Rachael Luckey, founder of TransGen Studios, president of the Los Angeles Trans Coalition, campaign manager for Trans Ambassadors, and founder of the TransGen Times. I'm talking very, very fast right now. We've been talking about trans issues within the media. We've been talking about her experience doing trans activism and activism that just comes from her perspective as a trans woman.
Yes.
And wow, we've sort of covered quite a bit right now, and I have a couple more questions here.
Go for it.
But we are going to take a musical break here.
Hello,
everybody. You're listening to The Queer Life on KBBF 89.1. Those were just a couple words from our fine sponsors. And as in the nature of KBBF awesomeness, I probably shouldn't be sucking on a mint while I'm doing a radio show. KBBF is a volunteer-supported organization.
Did you just swallow that?
No. And if you enjoy this show, or if you enjoy any other shows, all right, the mint's coming out. Where do I put it now? Just put it right there. If you enjoy this tomfoolery a little bit on my show here, you can go to kbbf-fm.org and hit the PayPal donut link. Yes, the donut link. The donate link at the bottom of the page here.
Who's this tomfoolery guy anyway?
Yes. This is the Queer Life radio show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussion, and interviews. I'm your host, Kaiya Krammer. We can be reached on www.thequeerlife.org to watch the episode live on the interwebs. We're also on facebook.com/thequeerlife. KBBF is on Facebook, facebook.com/KBBF. I'm like spacing out anyway. At the Queer Life on Twitter, at KBBF on Twitter as well. There's so many different social media thingies. Fill up your feed only with us.
Make up my mind.
Yeah, so there we go. Happy Halloween, everybody. Please stay safe. Don't drink and drive. Watch out for those checkpoints.
Absolutely.
If any of you know of any checkpoints, in the spirit of KBBF, give us a call at 707-545-0318.
Or if you have any questions about what we're talking about.
Or if you have any questions about what we're talking about. Anyway, though, my interview this evening is with Rachael Luckey, founder of TransGen Times, campaign manager for Trans Ambassadors, president of the Los Angeles Trans Coalition, founder of TransGen Studios. It is now an hour and a half into the episode, and she is still here. So I think this has been a fabulous episode so far. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. All
right.
It's been a lot of fun.
So I'm now going to switch the camera back onto my guest. And yes, I said camera because you can watch this episode on thequeerlife.org. It is there.
Yes.
Because there's cameras inside of a radio station. I know it's kind of weird. Anyway, I'm moving on now. And if you're listening to the rock and roll awesome electronic music, that was yeah, what do you think about that?
That was really cool.
Yeah.
And very, very apropos for the day of Halloween.
Yeah, Foxy Newport. His stuff is on soundcloud.com/Foxy Newport, FOXXY, NEWPORT. Queer artists. We want to promote more queer artists. If you know any other queer artists, feel free to contact us, thequeerlife.org/contact, or just go to thequeerlife.org. There's a contact button. And you can message us and let us know if you know any other queer artists to feature on here. That is, we just want to perpetuate the awesomeness, the queerness, Anyway, I'm going way too far with this.
just holler when you want me to stop you.
Yes.
Help.
usually, my co-host Mandy is here to slap me.
Oh,
But anyhow, so
That wasn't part of the pre-interview, the slapping part.
Yes.
It's Halloween though. It could be fun.
We've talked about a lot of things. You know, we've piercings, suspension. Have you heard of that?
Yes,
We've talked about bleaching and not of the teeth. We've talked about quite a bit on this show. So you're following up after we had the double rainbows guy.
Oh yes.
Bear Vasquez. That was he was awesome. And now the Queer Life is actually being featured on Yosemite Bear Vasquez's Double Rainbows guy, his YouTube channel now. So moving up in the world,
Wow.
double rainbows, one rainbow at a time.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So Rachel, we've talked about your activist work. We've talked about your experience in Hollywood. Let's talk about you. And so we started at the show. We asked you, okay, so you identify as a trans woman.
Yes.
So that's your gender identity.
Yes.
And your sexual orientation is straight.
Yes.
You said, which we defined as you as a trans woman being attracted to cis men.
Right.
Okay, so. And if you are confused by that and you're just tuning in, you should just listen to the beginning of the episode. It's on thequeerlife.org. Anyway, so you're a trans woman.
Yes.
When did you come out?
I started cross-dressing back in like 1998 and 1999, going into that area for a couple of years. And then when I moved out to Hollywood, I kind of put Rachael back in the closet. And so I was out then.
Not like R. Kelly's closet, right?
No. Believe me, she didn't want to go in there. Let me out.
Now I'm in the closet. Now I'm in the closet too.
And so, I turned a certain age. I'm a lady. I don't talk about, my age, but I turned a certain age.
It's rude to ask a woman what her age is.
Yes, it is. And I wouldn't tell you the truth anyway.
Oh.
But I turned a certain age about 15 or 16 months ago, and I decided, if not now, then, transition, then I never would. I'm getting at that age. So that was pretty much it. The funny part of the story is that I was cleaning out my closet, and in the back,
the metaphorical closet.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. No, my real closet with my real clothes, with no other people inside. And in the back of my closet, I found an old hippie skirt from when I had been dressing many years before. And I put it on, and it just felt like an old friend. And then my next thought is, well, my legs would feel really good if I went and shaved them. And then I thought to myself, now you're asking me trouble. So the next thing I knew, I was in the shower shaving my legs, and it snowballed.
It's all downhill from there.
And it snowballed from there. It hasn't been downhill. And then about a month later, I had scheduled an appointment to talk to the doctor about hormone replacement therapy. And July the 23rd, 2013, Rachael Rose was born again.
Oh wow! So you're a little over 1 year old now.
A little bit over 1 year old.
Well, congratulations! Happy
Thank you.
birthday!
Thank you.
It's a girl.
It's a girl. Yay!
No, you don't get that balloon yet.
But we will pass out cigars.
Yes. So HRT.
Yes.
Could you explain what that is to our audience?
Hormone replacement therapy. It's basically stopping for for male to female transgenders, the transition, we stop the production of testosterone and we infuse, or in my case, actually literally inject estrogen.
You get an injection of estrogen?
Give them to myself.
Wow. Where does the
Yes.
injection go?
In my tukis.
Oh, okay.
In my backside.
Wow.
Once a week.
Once a week. Okay.
Once a week, yes.
And
And sometimes it hurts worse than other times.
yeah. And so you've got to take this for how long?
For the rest of my life.
The rest of your life. There you have
Yes.
it.
Unless, of course, if I go to go ahead and have the gender reassignment surgery, then all I would need is a small maintenance amount of estrogen, similar to what they give menopausal women.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you started hormone replacement therapy a little over a year ago.
Yes.
And how instrumental was that for you in terms of your transition?
Very instrumental. You know, the main advantage to hormone replacement therapy is the secondary sex characteristics, physical sex characteristics, and to really make to have my body align with how I envision myself on the inside. I really felt that it was necessary.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So a lot of people. I don't want to get too far into it because a lot of people can just Google it.
Yeah.
What hormones? Google.
Yeah.
Let me Google that for you. What hormones do for transgender people?
Well, that was the weird part. When I signed up to go see the doctor, I had to wait 2 weeks, and during that 2-week period, I sat on my computer, and every question that I could think of, I Googled it, plus the words either transgender and or transsexual. Mm-hmm. And it is amazing how much information there really is on the internet. And that's why sometimes I wonder why people are so ignorant, and it may be just laziness or whatever, or lack of interest or whatever. But the information is there. So if you're questioning, where you're coming from and how you feel about yourself, do the research. I did it, and I went in with both eyes wide open.
Mm-hmm. Or in some people's cases, eyes wide shut. Okay, so what have you faced any challenges as a trans identified person in film and activism? Has this affected your life in? I mean, we can talk about the positive and negative, but
right.
How has being trans affected other aspects of your life?
That's a really good question, and I don't know that I've really thought about it, because to me, it's just been a transition from one thing to another. It's not that all of a sudden, boom, there was a big impact. It did happen over time. So, but I would say one of the major things that it impacted was how I relate to people. Men don't walk up to other men and give them hugs. To me, one of the best things.
We do that in Sonoma County.
Okay. In a lot of parts of the world. And, to me, the hug is one of the greatest things in the universe. And just something as simple as that, because now that I've come out as a trans woman, it's very natural for me to give somebody a hug, and where I couldn't before, because I'd be breaking some barriers that.
No, come on. There's the bro hug where you it's like with the pat on the back, or like the handshake in the arm, do the handshake and you lean in. It's
it's not
like
the
sup, bro,
same. It's not the same. No, but I think in that, because, being male for a long time, or, having to, be part of the male society, I did those kinds of things. And to me, there was a bit of superficiality to it. It's like, there's a homophobia almost about, you don't hug, unless you're really, 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 really close to somebody, you don't, two men don't hug. They don't give each other a really good hug, where it's like, I love you kind of hug, Of course, I am in San Francisco, so maybe that doesn't play well here, but it does play well in other parts of the country.
Context.
Yes. Yeah.
So it sounds like you've come into a place where you feel comfortable to behave in a way that feels more naturally to you.
Yes, that is probably the biggest change.
If you could assign a dollar value to that, how valuable would that be for you?
Priceless. So,
and I just want to mention out there to a lot of our listeners, we are talking about hormone replacement therapy, aspects of the gender binary in terms of masculine expression, feminine expression, and we mentioned this at the beginning of the episode in terms of gender fluidity,
right?
Gender queer identified people, gender variant. Reject those who quote unquote reject the binary. Not everybody under the trans umbrella necessarily decides to go on hormones.
Nope.
And
even fewer decide to get the gender reassignment surgery, even if they do go on hormones.
Yeah, many people who who are on there transsexual identified, and a lot of people, oh well, transsexuals either want the surgery, or they haven't gotten it, or they've had it, or they're going to get it, or they just want it. And that's not necessarily the case. Each and every trans identified person has a different trajectory in terms of their transition. Transition is a somewhat loose term. Transition doesn't mean, okay, sex change operation, which is an antiquated kind of term, or it's not in use anymore. Gender confirmation surgery is kind of the new buzzword going around right now.
But a rose is a rose.
Yes, that's one way to call it. And so we just want to throw out that while we are talking about hormone replacement therapy, while we're talking about, not everybody does this, and it is just as valid a transition as anybody else's. And if you're a trans person out there, or you're questioning yourself, it's really important for you to know that no matter which way you decide to go, or if you decide to stay, in the quote unquote metaphorical closets, you just got to do what's right for you, what's going to make you happy.
Well, there's also, the transition on the outside, but there's also a transition that happens on the inside, which is, sometimes as important or even more important. And, when you're able to be yourself and not hide how you feel and, what comes natural to you, then that's a transformation of in and of itself.
What we have about 6 more minutes here before we gotta close off the show here. I usually I did a little bit of an address here to our audience here, but do you have any words of advice to anybody who's questioning in terms of their gender identity, in terms of their sexual orientation? What would you say to somebody who came to you in confidence?
Well, first thing I would say is the first thing you have to decide is, how important is it to you? How important is it to express yourself in that regard? And if it's important enough to, have the possibility of foregoing family and friends and all of the other kinds of things that happen when somebody comes out, and especially nowadays in the transgender community, 40% of the homeless youth are LGBT right now, which is a horrific thing. And then the second thing is to do your research, have a plan. Don't just blurt it out one day, because, you know, you really have to plan it out so that, you know, you're not stuck living on the street sometimes, you know.
Absolutely, yeah, and you know, have a plan, but also, also make sure you're doing what's right for yourself too.
Yes, you do have to.
There's a lot of people who delay their transitions or delay coming out. You know, it's like, oh, I'm waiting for a family member to die. You know, I don't want to break this to my mother, or who are waiting for a job. You know, it's like whatever. You know, it's like these. There's no right answer to any of these situations.
No, definitely not.
And what worked for somebody else may not necessarily work for you. And this is, you know, what it all boils down to. There's, you know, in previous episodes, and you know, we've talked about suicide within the queer community, and there's, you know, there's this statistic for suicide just in the United States is anybody, you know, queer or straight or cis or trans or whatever, anybody who's a human being in the United States, less than 1.5% has attempted suicide. You know, 20% of the, you know, queer community has attempted suicide. You know, so 1 in 5.
47% of transgender people have attempted suicide.
There you hear it right there. 47% of the trans community. Half. You know, so yeah. A lot of trans people have attempted suicide. We ran a poll in Sonoma County for the number of trans people who have attempted suicide, and in Sonoma County, 80% of the trans community have attempted suicide.
And they can tag almost all of it back to bullying. Those words that we were talking about before.
Bullying?
Bullying.
Wow.
Yes, they can tag it back to that. Those hateful words. And that's why we have to be vigilant.
And you know what those words are. If you're saying, you know, that's so gay, or, you know, you're gay, or, you know, this homework is gay, or
tranny this or female that.
You know, it's inappropriate. Yes. It's somebody who whether the person is out or not, if, you know, you don't know who's going to be, you know, queer, you know, unless they've come out to you and they've shared with you a vulnerable side of themselves. So it's really important that you remain sensitive to that, because, you know, it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And a lot of you are saying, well, you know, well, maybe they should just toughen up. You know, you do you. You know, you can't, don't listen to them. You know, you just do you. It's like, well. Exactly. Yeah, you know, you got to be strong for yourself and confident for yourself. But when your entire environment is pitting itself against you, it becomes very hard to do you.
And then if you're adolescent on top of that, with brand new hormones and, you know, brand new life and all of this, it can be extremely confusing and extremely hurtful.
Okay, so that is just about all the time we have for this episode here. You've been listening to The Queer Life on KPBF 89.1 Calistoga, broadcasted from Santa Rosa. This is LGBT News, Modern Perspectives, round table discussion and interviews. I'm your host, Kaiya Krammer. I have been interviewing Rachael Rose Luckey, founder of TransGen Studios, trans-owned and run film studio, TransActivist, president of the Los Angeles Trans Coalition, campaign manager for Trans Ambassadors, founder of the TransGenTimes.org, which is a news syndication. And all of this information is available and more on thequeerlife.org. If you'd like to support this radio station, go to kpbf-fm.org. We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/thequeerlife. Twitter @thequeerlife, YouTube /thequeerlife. I'm going to close out here with a little Daft Punk Tron legacy, just because
I would like to say thank you so much for having me on the show this evening.
Seriously, thank you for coming and being vulnerable with us and doing all the wonderful and amazing work in the world.
Well, what you're doing is also a very wonderful thing, and I wish you the most success.
Thank you so much. All right. So everybody have a happy, happy, happy holiday.